someone going to go?
You can start in the meanwhile.
Let's start.
We're live on YouTube.
We're live everywhere.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. So welcome to this now session, live Q&A session, the first since our pre-launch, and one of the last ones before the official launch. They will be on January 1st, 2020.
Where we will also have a live session.
We will obviously always have live sessions, and we'll try to do it in different backgrounds because this is getting a bit boring, but this is our office, so this is what we have. So it's wonderful to have you with us. We're gonna try to keep this session to 30, maximum 40 minutes. And as I said before, we have quite a few interesting topics to cover because we received a lot of questions on Instagram. So, Colombe, do you agree with me going quickly through the agenda, and then I leave you the word on the update for now?
Yeah, and you can maybe do a short intro on what is now for those that are new.
Always useful. So, just for all of you, today we're going to talk about the following topics. I will give a short intro about now. Colombe will then present you the update of the last 2 weeks. And there will be a special focus on the launch that will be on the 1st of January 2020. And then we're going to jump into 3 hot topics for the world. The first one is NATO. So there have been a lot of talking about NATO in the last 2 weeks. And it's important to maybe update you a bit and give you also our position as now. Then we're going to talk about what's going on in Malta, the big scandal, with the Prime Minister allegedly involved in the death of the journalist Daphne Anna Caruana Galizia. And at the end, we're going to cover COP25, so the big conference that was supposed to be in Chile and actually is currently in Madrid. So having said that, let's jump to it. So for those of you that do not know, we are Andrea Colombe, and we are the 2 co-founders of Now. Now is the global movement pushing for humankind to work as one, to solve the biggest challenges of our time. What does it mean in practice? We are building up a movement that will be launched on the 1st of January 2020 to ensure that everyone from every country and continent of this globe work together to find practical solutions to the biggest problem that we face as human race. So starting from climate change, which is obviously really important on today's agenda, to nuclear proliferation, to defending global rights, and to economic topics. So we really have a wide agenda which we want to mobilize people. And as now, we're going to mobilize people and let's say deploy tools to change things and to advance policies. For example, petitions or referendum, or simply mobilizing volunteers across the spectrum to achieve change. So this is now in just a few words, and maybe now Colombe.
Yeah, so just to add 1 or 2 sentences on this. So basically, in super concrete terms, we identify issues that are supranational in nature so that countries or regions cannot solve alone. We often solutions already exist. If not, we bring together in a digital room loads and loads of people, from citizens to experts to everyone, identify the solution, and then we push for them to become reality. And the way we do so is by pushing for them to become law in various countries, so at national level, also in front of regional entities like the European Union, the African Union, the Organization of American States, or even in front of the UN when possible. We do this by asking for referendums, by pushing petitions, by organizing marches, lobbying, and so on. So that's what we do in 2 or 3 words for those that were not there the last few times. If you want to find out more information, our website is www.now.world. So I'm just going to give you the quick updates as we usually do from the last week. In the meanwhile, don't hesitate to drop your comments. We're monitoring it. And it's we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. We already collected a few throughout the day. So the first amazing update is the fact that we actually reached the threshold and the target of our crowdfunders. So thank you so much. Thanks to the thousands of people that actually pre-ordered the membership, we went above our targets. So we raised more than 35,000 euros, meaning that people from every single continent pre-ordered the membership, and better than that, many gave more so that other people can have a free membership. Because the organization is dependent on membership fees, But obviously, if anyone cannot afford it, we give it away for free. We want it to be as inclusive as possible. But we're so very thankful that so many people gave for others as well. So thank you so much. We're going to slow down on the crowdfunder as a result and put more political stuff out there. But
it was needed. Needed. At the beginning, we needed some resources, but we did our job, and thank you so much.
But we really didn't expect to reach that goal so quickly. We gave ourselves until the end of the year, and it's the beginning of December, and this is achieved. So thank you so much. It's absolutely amazing. If you want to know how we will spend the money and so on, you can go on our website and all of the details are there. I just want to bore you for those of you that already asked the question where we already answered the details. The second big news is this week we attended a conference at the OECD in Paris about the future of education. So as you know, now only deals with global issues, but this was focused on world education. So the idea that we live in an increasing interconnected society and an increasing interconnected world, and that the education system often doesn't adapt a lot to this. So we tend to study, for example, historically, when I studied history in France, it was mainly focused on Europe and the role of France, not so much on other continents. And it's the same for many, many topics. And so the conference was aimed at understanding how to move forward, how to have education systems that are more global and so on. And we heard from teachers, politicians, but also from students who are participating in various new courses that are aimed at being more interconnected.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. And I think that, these are exactly the kind of places where, as now, we should be, but it's actually really informative for everyone, because understanding that education has to change, education has to evolve, is obviously something that you hear in the political debate everywhere, but I don't think that many people actually have a clue of how it should happen. And it was really inspiring, especially to hear also the 15 to 16 years old people that basically were called on stage and said, like, so what do you want? What do you think should change? And it was really refreshing, because these are ideas from, let's say, the front line, and we learned a lot. So it was definitely a really important experience for us.
And basically the key outcomes were that 15 to 16 years old, but also university-age students, explained that they wanted to have a bigger say on the curriculum and that it shouldn't be frozen in time. So basically, there were some students from NYU, Abu Dhabi, I think, that were explaining that they want to be able to hack their curriculum every year so that they can adapt to the skills that are needed and developing very quickly. And then we went on to debate, how to make it more inclusive in a global way when you have socioeconomic barriers, geographical barriers. And many of those, some schools try apparently to deal with scholarships and others. But the language one is one that we're not managing to overcome. So if we want to have a global education system where we can all interact better together and learn about each other's regions and so on, we need to be able to speak the same language or to understand one another, which is not the case. Anyhow, that's a very long comment for the December conference, but we just came back, so my head is still in this.
We're really excited about that.
And the last news is, in the previous lives, we discussed with you the 3 first thematic areas that our 3 first campaigns will tackle. So we'll announce the details on January 1st on our launch, but basically they will tackle women's rights, fiscal justice, and climate change. But we actually are launching another one on the 1st of January. So on our launch, we'll also launch the first campaign. What we can tell you so far is that it will be global. It will be in front of the UN. And we will need as much help as possible. So we encourage you all to sign up. Even if you can't get a membership or whatever, leave us your details on our website. It will be incredibly helpful when we send you the first details on January 1st and request for you to take action. Just before we jump on the political topics, Marwan asked how you can get in touch for a project. The email address is info@now.world. You can find it on the website as well, or Facebook, Twitter, or anything else. But please get in touch. I look forward to seeing what your project is.
Yeah, please do it. Just before jumping on, let's say, the 3 political topics that we've selected today from your suggestions, I just wanted to give another final highlight on the next steps for now, because we are now less than 1 month away from the launch. as we always been saying, we're going to launch on the 1st of January 2020, which is a difficult date because many people probably will be maybe partying or relaxing somewhere, but we decided to sadly work before the end of the year and launch on the 1st of January because we feel that now should be the new movement for this new decade. And so we wanted to use a bit this symbolic day to put it out there. And it's really important to highlight also that from the 1st of January, our volunteers structure will kick in. So if you want to volunteer, if you have a New Year commitment to invest some time in something you believe into, in fighting climate change, in taking big topics and try to understand how to solve it as a planet, this is your chance. You can go on our website already and pre-order your membership. You can wait the 1st of January if you prefer. As we said, the membership, you can pay it or you can waive it if you cannot afford it. There's absolutely no problem. But we're going to really launch a big operation to involve many, many people from every corner of the world to collaborate as it has never been done before. The work will be centralized, will be really effective. We're going to ensure that there's no time wasted from anyone and actually building on what we learned in the past. So it's going to be really fun. So I ask you, if you want to volunteer a bit of time, the time has come.
And just a quick point on this. We said in our last newsletters, we encourage people to reach out if they want to be a special volunteer and organize other people and step up. And we're super happy because a lot of people have reached out.
Sorry if we didn't answer yet.
Exactly. We might just take 1 or 2 days to answer to everyone, but thank you so much. We're super excited.
So far, the team is this one only. So
a few special advisors on the side, but yeah, we need a bit of time to answer.
Exactly. Those answering to the emails are not many. So we do our best to catch up with all your emails. Thank you so much for your support. Now let's jump in the top political priorities for today. We selected 3, as I said at the beginning. The first one, and these are all comes from your answer on Instagram. The first one,
questions on Instagram.
Your question. The first one is the NATO topic. As you might be aware, there have been 2 weeks, in the last 2 weeks, a bit of row about NATO, especially because of the comments from President Macron of France, and then the summit is undergoing in London yesterday and today. So this is the first topic we're going to cover. Then Colombe will take up the topic of Malta and what's going on between the Prime Minister, the Chief of Staff, and journalism in general in the island. And the last topic will be about COP25. So what's going on in Madrid today and what is going to continue to be there for the next week.
In the meanwhile, if you want to discuss something else, add it as a comment. I'm monitoring YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, so we'll answer as we get to it.
Absolutely. So let's start with NATO. So as probably most of you know, NATO is obviously the North Atlantic alliance between the US, Canada, and several European countries. And this year is the 70th birthday of the alliance. Has been often called the most successful alliance ever in terms of defense. It has been created after the Second World War and is still in place, effective, and actually being recently stepped up a lot in terms of commitment and collaboration between all the states that are part of the alliance. The alliance has recently been subject to new interest because President Macron, I think now 2 weeks ago, has released a long interview on the Economist, basically saying, look, NATO is dead. It's brain dead, and we need to reform it or scrap it or anyway changing the status quo because NATO as it is now is not enough. And he mentioned in particular 2 events that put in discussion the stability of NATO. The first one was the Turkey attacking Syria, invading north of Syria to counter what they call the Kurdish terrorists without consulting anyone from the alliance beforehand. And the second one is still Turkey buying weapons from Russia. And
also invading Syria in a completely illegal manner.
Yeah. That was the first topic. And so this basically means that Macron said, look, Turkey acted in a certain way without consulting us. So basically, this is not how NATO should work. NATO is about a coalition of like-minded countries acting together, be ready to stand up against aggression. If this is the case, if this is the way some of our partners work, NATO is not reliable anymore. And actually, Macron used this interview also to advance his proposal of creating a stronger European defense and so on. And that was, I think, 10 days ago, roughly. And after that, there was an encounter between Macron and the General Secretary of NATO, which obviously smoothed a bit the tension, but Macron stood by his comments. And the last 2 days in London, all head of states from NATO met to discuss the future of the can be upgraded. And still there, Macron still stood by his comment and said, look, NATO like this is not working, and got attacked by Trump. By President Trump. There used to be a strong critique of NATO and the fact that many countries were not committed enough. And now, in the latest press release, actually press conference, Trump said, look, NATO is amazing. Actually, the US is the one taking less advantage from it. All countries are profiting a lot, especially France. Actually, he said France is the one profiting the most out of NATO. We don't know exactly why, but it's the one profiting the most.
It's a bit complicated to try to get into Trump's mind, but that's another problem.
Exactly. And so basically here we stand with a NATO alliance that is a bit shaky, needs update, needs probably stricter rules. And for sure, it has been really put under pressure from Turkey's behavior.
Yeah, so basically some of you asked us what we think. So disclaimer, we're not experts on international security. So a few things. First, clearly Macron's comments have a backing in the sense that if Turkey invades illegally another country and commits crimes, doesn't consult with allies, it's complicated then to follow Article 5 that says that, if one member is attacked, all are attacked or whatever, and we all need to defend one another. It's complicated to follow up on this, not just because it's complicated, but because when it's based on an illegal invasion, it's also very hard legally to go forward. So this is when we believe that there needs to be some rediscussion of NATO's basic principles, meaning it should be conditional on Turkey not invading another country, or this is just an example, and it could be any other example, illegally without consulting others. We can't, the world cannot just be dragged into wars because one country acts crazily. And right now we're talking about Turkey, but it could be France, it could be Italy, it could be the US, it could be any country. And the second point is that although we think that Macron has a point, you also need to put your money where your mouth is. So it's easy to say that NATO is becoming more and more irrelevant, or that NATO is dead and we just need a European security system or whatever. The fact of the matter is, France doesn't spend 2% of its GDP on defense and NATO like it's supposed to do. So we're not meeting our obligations. So while the criticism might be grounded in the fact that some countries are acting irresponsibly, we need to make sure that we do our part in exchange to make it either stronger, reform it, or leave. But it's too easy to do it this way.
Yeah, bottom line, we're a bit tired of politicians pretending to be really wise and teaching the world what to do when they are not doing it in the first place. So just to summarize, yes, NATO needs reform. Yes, NATO is not doing amazingly. Macron is right on that. But Macron is criticizing from a position where actually he's not respecting the commitment he had taken towards NATO, as many other countries.
Yeah.
There are only 5 that actually doing so.
Oliver just said a lot of countries aren't. Actually, the only countries that are the US, Great Britain, Poland, Estonia, Greece, and I think that's all.
That's all. So most countries are not respecting, but so I'm always, my grandparents told me that it's important that when you say something, you at least have a clean conscience. So it would be wiser and better for everyone if actually Macron would criticize from a position of being able to do so and not always from a position of default. So this is a bit what we want to say. So let's work to improve NATO and let's not scrap a really important alliance that protected us all for many years.
Yeah, and we do think, so now stands for humanity to act as one in general. So we do think that in general, international systems in which you have more countries is the better. So instead of reverting to, only the EU having this or EU countries having defense forces, although the EU should invest in defense and so on. It's important to have broader coalitions across the world to maintain peace, security, and so on.
Perfect.
So we're monitoring at the same time. So if you have any questions, ask them. The second question we got was on Malta, and to have a bit of background on the current crisis. And what we think. So just so you know, in 2017, a journalist, Daphne Galizia, was murdered following a lot of investigation and reporting on issues of corruptions, issues of politicians being corrupt and linked to foreign governments, and so on. So there's been some investigation since then, but basically a couple of weeks ago, and I'm making it super short now, but there's been a lot of things in between. A couple of weeks ago, so actually on the 20th of November 2019, the police arrested the owner of a Dubai-based company to be connected to her murder, and he implicated the chief of staff of the prime minister. Sorry, I'm trying to get it right at the same time. And so the chief of staff resigned, but then there began to be a huge row over the prime minister potential implication or role, or the fact that he should not be in this position. So people have been taken to the streets and demanding for his resignation. So again, it has been 2 years since the murder of this journalist, and this is taking place in a situation where freedom of speech and journalists are increasingly under threat around the world, and in the EU as well. And so the prime minister actually said that he would resign, I think sometimes in January. But the whole issue is the fact that if he's going to resign, why not resign now, when he could potentially, if he was linked to it, tamper further with evidence or other issues. So the protesters and many groups, including NGOs and so on, are calling for the prime minister to resign now and for the investigation to be able to go forward. So because we could receive actually a lot of questions on this and on journalists in general and the freedom of speech, I took the time today to read the Reporters Without Borders report. So every year, Reporters Without Borders puts out a report explaining the state of the freedom of speech and of journalist situations across the world. So it basically ranks countries based on how safe it is for journalists to operate. You can check it out. It's actually really interesting. But it also explains the general trends. And in 2019, journalistic freedom and freedom of speech has been going down compared to 2018. A lot of journalists are being threatened, cyber harassed, and killed. And so I was trying to look for solutions at the same time, because in general, it's easy to explain that something is going wrong. It's a bit harder to look for solutions.
Find a solution, right? But this is why we're here. Right?
Yes.
Not only to criticize.
And apart from the specific Malta case, where I personally completely agree that the prime minister should get out now instead of staying another month and a half, no one knows why, and that the investigation should be able to proceed, and that the victim's family can finally get closure, and we can hold those accountable. So again, Reporters Without Borders, but also other groups are calling for concrete measures to be able to safeguard the freedom of speech and the safety of journalists. And that is for the creation of a special representative to the United Nations Secretary General for the safety of journalists. So basically, as a quick background, and then I stop talking. As a quick background, the UN Secretary General can have special reporters that investigate situations across the world, do reports, can look at complaints and so on. And the idea would be that one would be especially dedicated to journalists' safety, which clearly is completely needed considering the fact that safety is decreasing for journalists across the world. In every region. And actually the region where it declined the most compared to last year was the Americas, and Europe was second. Which
is crazy, right? If you think about it, in 2020, we are still experiencing basically an erosion of basic rights, basic rule of liberty. And it's happening in countries and places where actually it shouldn't happen anymore. Like we've been through that in the past. And then we were checking a bit of countries around. And for example, Italy, my country, is number 43, I think.
42, I think. Yeah.
Or 42 in terms of freedom of journalism. And there were many examples mentioned of threatened to journalists and journalists being harassed by both the judiciary, but also, and obviously, right wing, far right politicians. It's just astonishing. In 2020, it's something that like my grandparents have experienced, and now we have to go through again.
Yeah, actually, I think you meant the political, because the judiciary. So
yes, right.
in recent years, especially in France, actually, there's been a lot of bogus lawsuits, so unfounded lawsuits against journalists to take their resources and time away.
Yeah, so it's really, really sad, and I'm really happy to see that this coalition trying to create a body to basically protect journalism in the UN, and maybe something in the future will back. Let's see. Let's look into it because it looks really interesting.
Yeah. So I invite you all to look at the reports. It's very informative.
So let's stay updated on Malta, because sadly the situation is not closed. And now let's move to the last topic of the day. There is a really, really important topic, is COP25. So COP25, for those of you that are not really following what's happening in Madrid right now, is basically the conference of the parties. There is a UN conference on climate change. There is, and is it not the 25th of this conference that was started in 1995 in Berlin, Germany, and they have basically advanced the topic of the fight against climate change since 1995. And it's really interesting because I think that in the international media and in the most recent, like among, let's say, people that are not passionate about the topic, it was only heard in the last few years, the term climate change and climate crisis, but actually it's been under observation, obviously, for many decades, and from the UN in particular from 1995 with this conference of the parties. And this month, as we speak, basically the 25th conference is taking place in Madrid. It was supposed to take place in Chile, but sadly because of protests and actually pro-democracy protests that they're not anymore really covered in the media as of now, the conference has been moved to Madrid. And so far, the biggest news has been Greta Thunberg, the climate activist that sailed the Atlantic back from the US to Lisbon to advance her battle on the ecology and defending the planet. But I was a bit disappointed, and I shared in a few social media updates before about the fact that there is not much talking about this, right? We know that this conference is truly important. It's supposed to give a pathway to the world to reach zero net emission by 2050. It's basically the bare minimum if we want to, let's say, achieve the 1.5 degree increase only 1.5 increase in temperature.
Which, by the way, means that we can only survive. So it's not like a bare minimum for something crazy. It's to enable humanity to survive post 2100.
So basically, this conference is done on purpose to achieve this goal, to ensure that we don't go too terribly in the planet. And there's not much coming out of it. So, I mean, we are following, obviously, we're really interested. We follow the updates. There have been a few interesting speeches, a few interesting panels, but we didn't hear any, big leader taking a stance, any government making commitments so far. There's still a week. Let's hope for it. There's going to be a really heated week next week. But so far, I was personally disappointed on what went on.
And I think it's very typical of the state of politics right now as well. The whole focus was on Trudeau mocking Trump, or Trump's reaction to Trudeau, or reaction to Macron, and vice versa, which when you look at the videos is funny, yes, but it's extremely sad that what we're looking at is this and not key commitments to actually solving a crisis that will not only kill humanity as a whole, but that will, is already displacing population, is already creating food shortages and so on. I mean, this is a key moment, and instead we're looking at clowns on videos.
It's absolutely worrying, especially because it seems like the UN is still completely subjugated to countries' will, meaning there's a huge difficulties in taking position, there's a huge difficulties in advancing program, unless everyone is obviously behind, unless everyone has thought about it for many years. And this is a huge problem when you're facing an emergency. In business as usual, it's annoying, but we can deal with it. As of now, it's really, really worrying. And I see a question for Mario. Do you think we can change really the status on climate if China or India won't decide it? I think so. I think that actually China and India are not right now the major, let's say, blockade for advancing on the climate topic. We have the US that is actually denying, the current administration has cut many funds from international institutions, is denying the status of climate.
It's getting out of the Paris Agreement. It's the only country getting out of the Paris Agreement.
So it's always easy to point finger to obviously big emitter as China and India. They should do more, and we will work to lobby them to do more. But we have to remember that until the US doesn't move, or Brazil with Bolsonaro, or Russia, there is not much to do. It's not only on the other side of the world.
And this, I think, is exactly when a global movement like now comes into effect. So you have right now a huge emergency, which is a climate crisis. I mean, scientifics say it, everyone says it, literally, it puts our lives and future into danger, and it already does for some people around the world. And you have some governments, I don't want to be rude, like so some politicians and heads of states that deny science and deny facts, and as a result refuse to commit a budget or take action to solve this climate crisis. So what do? Do we stand by and wait for them to suddenly wake up with some illuminated idea to solve it? I unfortunately think that with people like Trump and Putin, it's not going to happen anytime soon. And this is when I think that as people from across the world, we have a huge power. If we manage to mobilize by the millions, not only to get out on the streets, although it's super important, but to lobby concrete pieces of legislation, to sign petitions and request our parliaments and governments to take concrete actions like a carbon tax or other on to counter climate change, then we can create change. And this is exactly what now wants to do. And India and China, have a lot of people walking on the streets and willing to take action. But I also note some of the there are some big polluters, but we're standing in Brussels right now, consider that the EU is one of the regions that pollutes way more compared to its population. I can't find it.
The pollution per capita is higher.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the highest in the US, then there is the EU, and then other countries.
So, I mean, we should also start with this. But in general, I do think that we can change the climate crisis. We can counter it. We don't have a lot of time, and we don't have a lot of options.
But we might have a solution.
I think we do have a solution, and you should watch out for our campaigns. But it requires for us all to take action. And I don't just mean individual actions like recycling and so on, although please do it. Yeah. But I mean asking our governments to do concrete and drastic change. Because, small actions help, but they won't change the fact that humanity risks going extinct by 2100. The only way that can do this is to drastically change the way big companies operate, which are responsible for a third of global emissions. To put concrete legislations in place to counter it.
And actually, and this is the theory of Colombe and I, there is much to do in multilateral institutions as well. Because yes, we see some governments that are particularly willing, particularly versed in doing something. We saw the European Parliament taking a positive vote on the climate emergency. But the big problem, and it was pointed out by someone, until the UN doesn't really push the world to work as one. Even if in the EU, if we cut completely emission, even if suddenly Russia will wake up and say, look, we actually have to do something, until the US, China, India, Brazil, South Africa don't get on board, yes, we're not solving anything. We have to be completely honest about this. Even if tomorrow the EU will stop polluting completely,
which is not the case.
The world would not be safe. So we really have to start looking beyond our little courtyard, because if not, we're going to all fail.
And this is when we have collective power. So if only people I'm studying in Brussels, that's why I keep on talking about Belgium, but if only people in Belgium were to go out and protest, it would be completely pointless. But Fridays for Futures and other movements have shown this. People mobilize across the world everywhere to show that they had enough. Now, this is great, but we need to go beyond. I agree with Greta and so on that it's the role of our governments to propose concrete solutions, but they're completely failing. It's the role of the UN to push for global solutions to global problems. It's not doing it. And so this is what we're going to address.
Exactly. So stay tuned, because on the 1st of January, we're going to release a big surprise on this particular topic. And we want all of you...
We're not supposed to say that.
Yeah, but it's a topic. The topic is fine. We want all of you to subscribe and follow, because it's going to be really important for our future.
So that's the end of the live, but go on our website and leave us your email. It doesn't you to do anything, but it will help us drastically in building this movement and coming up with solutions.
And maybe you can also help, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night, and send us any comment you have on social media on info@now.world, and keep on following us, guys.